Welcome to our Milan Magic podcast, our Quick Hit edition. I'm Christine Brennan with Brian Boitano. And oh my goodness, Brian, what a night. What a shocking result. Ilia Malinin finishing 8th, the quad god, 8th place out of the medals. With just a shockingly devastating performance, probably the worst we have ever seen, sadly, by an Olympic favorite in the history of the Olympic Games. Brian, you were here. You watched it happen.
Yeah.
What did you see there on the ice as you were watching him and watching it just slowly fall apart for him?
It was, I was stunned. I was literally stunned, and I couldn't believe I was watching this and, literally experiencing this. I've never seen him do that. And, in the 6 minute warm up, his face looked good. I look at the skaters' faces and their body language, and he looked great. He hit everything. It was beautiful in the warm up. Every skater in the last warm up hit everything during the warm up. It was a pristine warm up by every skater. He was in control. He was calm. He was measured. He was Ilia. And then when he came back on the ice, it just during his performance, everything started to unravel. And I was discussing this when I came back to the Winter House. It was Scott Hamilton, Christy Yamaguchi, Evan Lysacek, Paul Wiley, myself, and we just kind of sat down. We looked at each other and we're like, "What happened?" From my experience watching him, it just seemed like his mind started going. First of all, you can't ever underestimate the pressure of expectation
Right.
and being in Olympics. You just can't. So that is astronomical. The fact that Yuma Kagiyama skated not his best before him, I think that was actually, I don't know if I noticed this, but I thought I noticed him noticing the score that was very low, which puts more pressure on him because he has no person like challenging him at all.
Right.
So this is
Right.
before he started the program. And after the first two mistakes, I feel like his brain started doing math, going like, oh my God, I missed 2 jumping passes. And then it just started to snowball. And he missed one thing after the other. And I just think, Christine, it's a matter of the pressure of the
Yeah.
situation he was in and the expectation. And you can't explain, unless you've been there, what it is like to be skating for an Olympic gold medal and being in that moment. It's just inexplicable.
Brian, I wrote a column here and talked about this on a couple media shows, and exactly, if anyone ever wondered what Olympic pressure looks like and how significant it is, there it was, on display, sadly, of course, from Ilia, of course, just beyond, I'm sure there are many people listening to us are heartbroken for him, and we, knowing him so well, you just absolutely hate to see all of that happen to him. But it's interesting what you described, because I noticed and maybe you noticed this too, he was so loose going into the final group of skaters, for the long program, of course, tonight. Last night, actually, as we're speaking here at 2 a.m, right after the men's long program, that he actually faked doing a backflip as he walked out for his warm up. I don't know if you noticed that. He was shaking a finger to the audience like, oh, no, not yet, not yet. And I thought, that is as loose as I've ever seen a skater coming out for the long program, other than
Yeah.
maybe Alyssa Liu when she was doing those
Yeah.
cartwheels at
Yep.
Worlds last year, but that's Alyssa. And, who does that as they march out for the most nerve-wracking moment of their lives? No one except Ilia Malinin. So then, of course, and everyone, I think a lot of people wonder about the weight. I'd love to ask you about that in a minute. But Ilia's skating last, of course. It's like golf, the best go last. So you've got 5 other skaters that come after him. So he's got a 40-minute wait after he's warmed up. Nothing unusual about that. That happens all the time in this sport. But something happened, Brian, when he
Yeah.
came out on the ice, as you were saying. His face looked tense. The bravado was gone. He looked nervous, worried. And then, of course, the mistakes start happening and he just couldn't stop them. So let's talk about that, that
Yeah.
40 minutes.
Yeah.
There,
Oh, yeah.
that in itself, mastering that time, that waiting
Yes.
time before you skate, that's an extraordinary challenge, isn't it?
Absolutely. That is the challenge of it's the worst time in a skater's life, getting having after the 6 minute warm up, you're waiting. Some people take off their skates, some people leave their skates on, just waiting and listening to what's happening out there and just waiting for your moment. This is the thing, Christine, in this high pressure elite competition of going for Olympic gold, things can change on a dime. Your energy, the energy that I saw him have in the warm up, while you're 40 minutes, that's a long time. There are a lot of things
Mhm.
going through your mind, and your brain can switch in a different direction. The job of the skater and any athlete at an Olympic level is to train their brain to, when it tries to switch in a negative direction, you have to switch it in a positive direction. And I feel like that switch didn't happen for him tonight.
Yeah.
And when he got back on the ice, that switch was still off, and it just escalated and, layered on each other. And it just, it kept one after the other. It kept snowballing into mistake after mistake.
Well, without a doubt, and your analysis is so right on and so helpful because again, I think a lot of people think, oh wow, you have to wait that long. Well, yes, that happens, and you mastered it over the years amazingly, and skaters have deal with all kinds of issues involving it. Afterwards, down in the mix zone, and I think people who watched on TV also saw this. Ilia Malinin, no surprise to us, classy, dignified, answered every question calmly and completely. And let me tell you some of the quotes and some of the things he said. Love to get you to kind of comment on those. So, the pressure, he's talking, the pressure of the Olympics really gets to you, he said. The pressure is unreal. It's almost like I wasn't aware of where I was in the program. Usually I have more time and more feeling of how it is, but this time it all went by so fast, he said. And I really didn't have time to make those changes or make that process happen or make that process different. What do you take away from quotes like that it was going so fast for him and he felt like it was
Yeah.
out of control?
It's exactly what I was talking about. And when I came back to the winter house here, it was Evan Lysacek and me and Scott Hamilton talking about the fact that you can't prepare a kid who has never done the Olympics. If you say, when you step on the ice at the Olympics, it's going to be 17 times the pressure that you feel for a world championship, or anytime you've ever stepped on the ice, they have to experience for themselves. And the three of us have experienced that, and we've gone through it. And fortunately, we were victorious after that. But he is describing exactly what I said. It's a snowball, and you have to train your mind to stop that, that mental dialogue that you have from going in a negative way. Because think about a program, Christine, like how it's laid out. It's like you make a mistake and the next jumping pass is 10 seconds, 15 seconds. You're setting up. You have to regroup and think technical and positive. And sometimes your brain doesn't work that fast. Unless you've trained it to go in that direction, it won't. And then once it starts to snowball, then you only think of the past. Like, oh, I missed the quadruple axel. I missed the quadruple loop. Oh my God, and then all of a sudden you're in the past and not in the future.
Right, right. And it's just, you're lost on the ice kind of, it's just,
Yes,
what
you're
am I
lost.
doing?
Exactly what he said.
Right. What's happening to me? He hadn't lost a competition since 2023, four-time national champ, two-time world champ, winning everything, 7 quads in the Grand Prix final in
Yeah,
December in the long program. Um, and are you, you know him well. I've gotten to know him
yeah,
well. Are you
yeah.
worried about him?
I'm worried about that performance. I'm not worried about him because I trust him and I believe in him and I know that he's a great champion, and I can't wait to see him tomorrow and just let him know that we are all with him. That this is what happens in a skater's brain when they have a performance like that. They go home and they're alone and they think everybody's changed their mind about how fantastic they are, and they think that everybody's against them, and they're embarrassed, they're disappointed. And our job as a community and me as a skater who's gone through it is to let him know, and just that we are here, we believe in him, we know he's a champion, and nothing has changed. He's human. That's a fact, and everyone's human, everyone makes mistakes, but we believe that he is the champion that he is, and we will support him and back him all the way to the next Olympics.
It's well said, and I know that to be the case with you and so many of the others. I mean, just wonderful people, and a joy for me to be around as a journalist. Um, you know, next steps for Elia. Clearly, there's the World Championships in what, about 6 weeks, but how does he start to bounce back? I mean, the way he answered the questions in the mixed zone was quite impressive. I mean,
Yeah,
my goodness, how many professional athletes have we seen older than him who are throwing helmets against the
yeah,
locker and refusing to speak and slamming doors, and all kinds of great athletes and great names that people have watched have just behaved horribly, and they get to play next week, or they get to play
yeah,
in another a few weeks or month, whatever.
yeah.
So um what's if you gave, I know you'll speak to him and give him some advice, or if he wants it, what kind of advice would you have for him over the next couple of of weeks, heading into probably the World Championships?
Well, it's interesting because we, as the champions, like Christy Yamaguchi was there with me tonight too, as well. And so we were all talking, and we're like, we are going to support him and let him know that, this doesn't change anything. It doesn't change his talent. It will take a while to get over this. This is a really rough
Yeah.
go. This is rough. It's hard to get over this. It's, it's literally building back your confidence from a shattered performance, a shattered confidence performance.
Yeah.
This will take time, but he can do it. And that's, you know what, honestly, that's what we need to tell him, and tell him that we believe in him. He can build his confidence back. If he needs any of us, we will be there. It's just, it's they the skater on that side just needs to know that people support them, still love them, still believe in them, and they know that they can go on to the next level and be successful. That's all that they need to know.
Yeah. Last question, and we'll call it a night. And again, just kind of shock for everybody,
Yeah,
all of us in press row, everyone. The shock in the arena. I mean, they were cheering. People were cheering like crazy. Trying to will him on, and then realizing this, those two falls then that came after the two pop jumps.
yeah,
The the quad god. People are going to be
yeah,
talking about this. And, I have always said that he's delightfully brash. He's
yeah,
kind, and he lingers with journalists, and he looks us in the eye, and he talks about his mom, and he's a delightful young man. But there will be people out there who will say it was too much publicity, too much social media. That will happen. I'm sure I'm sure it's already out there.
yeah,
A lot of, now we also know, and I'll say before I leave it to you to finish us off here. We also know this is the moment for the Olympians. They do this before the Olympics because there's so often so little afterwards, because we go right into men's and women's NCAA tournament and baseball, and it's like, oh, the Olympics are gone. So nothing against any athlete at the Olympics for doing the promotional work and doing the commercials and the social media, because this is their opportunity to make money, and it's what they all do. It's not just Elia, but clearly, Elia did a lot. He was out there a lot.
yeah.
Any concerns that you had then, or anything that you take away from that, or the fact that that he was clearly doing, maxing out, so to speak,
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that pre-Olympic exposure.
Well, this is the thing. I think, yeah, if it were me, I wouldn't have done that. But this is Ilya, and I truly believe that he could and can handle this and could have handled that. And he just had too much on his plate. But I think he is a person who can handle it. But that being said, And you know what? It's impossible to say this to a young kid when, you see them, you're like, this is going to create a better fabric for you as a champion. It's like no kid wants to hear that. But it is true. It's like listening to your mom and dad. It's like,
Right.
this is going to create a better story, a better fabric, a better like of your competition expertise. It will contribute to you coming back stronger than ever. And this, you and I know because we're older, this is something that they don't want to hear, but it is the truth, and they will discover that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that you and I will be talking more about Ilia. I know you will be talking to Ilia, and I hope to maybe
Yeah.
get a chance to chat with him a little bit too. I cannot stress how classy and dignified he
Oh,
was in the mix zone and in his interviews.
I love
The
that.
maturity was off the charts. And, that is just so rare at this absolutely crushing moment for him. And I think
Yeah.
that for me is a huge takeaway for him, how he was raised. His parents,
Yeah.
both Olympians, they obviously are devastated. His coaches, of course, as well as his mom and dad. But I think your insights have been terrific, Brian. Let's call
Sure.
this a night. It has been quite a
Yeah.
night, completely unexpected.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thanks to you and thanks to everyone for listening on our Quick Hit, their Milan Magic podcast. I'm Christine Brennan for Brian Boitano. Have a good evening.